Beneath the streets of Paris, beneath the cafés, the metro, the museums, there is another city. It has streets, rooms, walls covered in names, and entering it without permission is illegal. This is not a myth. It's not a tourist attraction. It's larger than the Louvre, longer than the entire Paris metro system, and most Parisians will never see it. So why does a city exist beneath Paris? That no one is supposed to, because this place wasn't built to be visited. It was built to solve a problem so dangerous that Paris was literally collapsing into itself. Les Catacombes de Paris did not open to visitors. The entrance itself is marked with the words, Arrête, c'est ici l'empire de la mort, meaning halt. In the 1700s, Paris had a problem, a deadly one. Entire streets began to collapse without warning. Houses vanished overnight. The reason was underground. For centuries, Paris had been hollowed out by limestone mining long before the city above even existed. And eventually, the ground could no longer support the city. Paris was falling into the void. Solution wasn't to fill the tunnels. It was to map them. Engineers descended underground and began transforming chaos into structure. They reinforced ceilings, marked passageways, numbered corridors. They didn't just stabilize the tunnels. They organized them into a city. Then came a second crisis. Paris ran out of space for the dead. Cemeteries overflowed. Disease spread. The solution was unthinkable. 6 million bodies were moved underground. Skulls stacked into walls. Bones arranged into patterns. The tunnels became the largest mass grave on Earth. What tourists see today is less than 1%. The real network stretches for over 300 kilometers. Most of it is unlit, unmarked, and structurally unstable. Some tunnels flood, others collapse, and many have never been fully mapped. This is why entry is forbidden. People get lost. People drown. People disappear. Paris even has a special underground police force, tasked with keeping people out. Not to protect the tunnels, but to protect the city above. And yet, people still go. They call themselves cataphiles. They map tunnels, build hidden rooms, throw secret underground gatherings. An entire subculture exists in a place the government pretends doesn't exist. Paris isn't unique. Many major cities sit atop forgotten underground worlds. But Paris is different. Because if the tunnels fail, the city above follows. Paris is beautiful because it stands. But it stands on something fragile. A city beneath a city, holding everything up. And almost no one is allowed to see it. Based on geographic urban historian Reveal,
to refer to the entirety of the vast network of galleries that sprawls underneath Paris, a reign of darkness underneath the city of lights. But if we really want to be picky, the tourist attraction known as the Catacombs consists of only 2 kilometers of tunnels that are open to the public, which were used as a burial place in the 18th and 19th centuries. This is just a tiny fraction of the whole network, which extends to a total of up to 200 miles. Today it is largely closed to the general public for most of the year, but a good Parisian is always a bit of a revolutionary, and so organized a group of explorers who defy law by roaming the dark corridors that are normally off limits. The development of this parallel city below the surface, it started very early. Experts evaluated that quarry tunnels have existed on the outskirts of Paris since Roman times. The medieval times, the building frenzy extended to religious buildings. Paris's Cathedral of Notre Dame was built with stone carved from these mines. Now, I'm not a civil engineer, but I can guess that digging big holes under street level is going to create some kind of problem at some point. Surprisingly, though, it took several centuries before the first major collapse occurred, and that happened in December of 1774. One of the tunnels connecting the mines crumbled, opening a gaping hole that swallowed houses and people on the Avenue d'Enfer Rochereau. More disasters occurred over the next few years, and finally, the king, he took action. Louis XVI commissioned an architect named Charles-Axel Guillemot to explore, map, and stabilize the quarries. The individual mines were unconnected to each other at this stage. It was Guillemot's inspectors who dug more tunnels connecting the isolated networks and creating today's layout. Work went on until 1780, when what must have been one of the most morbid events ever took place. Since 1763, a royal edict had banned all burials in the capital for sanitary reasons. The church opposed the order and nothing was done. So back to 1780. An unusually long period of spring rain caused a wall around Les Innocents to collapse. Les Innocents was Paris's largest cemetery. This resulted in a literal avalanche of rotting corpses and pestilent sludge crumbling into the neighboring properties. Church officials agreed to do something about it, and the king ordered Guillemot to find a solution. And voila, the architect relocated thousands of bodies and bones into the quarry tunnels, which effectively became the catacombs. A distinctive feature of these catacombs is the Denfert Richereau ossuary, the tourist site that you can visit. Initially, the bones of the dead were first stored very simply. Only later, the funeral workers began arranging the bones in decorative structures such as hearts or circles. Even the walls and pillars were lined with skulls, tibias, fibulas. It feels sort of like walking into the stomach of a huge monster. Above the entrance, an inscription was placed in something in French, which I'm not going to try and pronounce, but in English it says, "Stop, this is the Empire of Death." One of the most famous structures is the barrel. It is a barrel-shaped pillar assembled with thousands of bones, which was erected to support the ceiling of the room called the Crypt of the Passion, a job it does incredibly well. The catacombs ended up providing eternal rest to 6 to 7 million dead Parisians. Among them, several victims of the French Revolution and some notables who fell under the guillotine, like Maximilien de Robespierre. Another celebrity whose bones can be found here is the 17th century writer Charles Perrault, author of Little Red Riding Hood and Cinderella. The extended network of the catacombs played a role also during the Paris Commune. During the last months of the Franco-Prussian War, a socialist insurgency established an autonomous government in the City of Lights. The insurgents had to face the violent repression of the rival French Third Republic, established after Napoleon III's abdication. An English conservative journalist in Paris described how 6,000 of the defeated insurgents were seeking refuge underground. He wrote, "Wandering in an agony of despair in the labyrinth of the catacombs." It seems like every time Paris went through a period of unrest, the catacombs, they came in handy. During the Second World War, for example, the underground city was bustling with activity. First, the German Luftwaffe established their bunker, then the collaborationist government, and finally, the head of the resistance built their underground headquarters here. These three hideouts are easily connected to each other, and that is why rumor has it that members of the three factions would often bump into one another in the dark galleries and simply ignore each other for one reason or another. But this fun bit of history is not actually true. The bunker was never in use at the same time. This is one of the many urban legends about the catacombs, and we've got plenty more of those coming up later. Entering the quarries became illegal in 1955, not so much as a form to control illicit activities, but to prevent accidents and people getting lost in the 200 miles of tunnels. But when strife came, the Parisians would always know how to make good use of the galleries. In 1968, a student protest erupted into riots, pitting Parisian students against riot squads. The catacombs proved handy, and the students in revolt used these galleries to evade the police and quickly reassemble in other parts of the city. In later decades, mostly the 1970s and 1980s, a new movement blossomed, the cataphiles, the catacomb enthusiasts. The traditional Parisian rebelliousness got a fresh kick from punk culture. Taking advantage of the many entrances still open, groups of young cataphiles discovered that they could descend into the quarries from the basements of their schools. In secret places only they knew how to reach, the cataphiles partied, staged performances, created art, and took drugs. At first, the world on the surface barely took notice, but by the end of the 1980s, the city and private property owners had shut down most of the entrances, and an elite police unit began patrolling the tunnels.